Around the time you finish medical school, you will start getting pestered by a number of organisations, and one of those types of organisations is medico-legal and indemnity providers. Now, just a bit of conflict of interest before I go into this video. I have done some work with the MDU, the Medical Defence Union, before, and they are my medical indemnity provider. But that's not really the point of this video. Other suppliers are available. Get the best quote you can get, doesn't matter who it's with. The question of this video is really, do you need medico-legal indemnity support or do you not? What is it for? Who does it help? As a newly qualified doctor particularly, lots of our colleagues just starting FY1, is this something that you should have? So just to start with, what do we actually mean by indemnity? What does the term mean? What indemnity means in this case is protection or security of some kind against a financial loss or a significant burden. Functionally, what that means in the case of a doctor is if something goes wrong at work and maybe a patient comes to harm or a negligence case is brought against you, and indeed financial compensation might be chased by a patient as a result of whatever has happened, then indemnity is the system that will stop you losing everything and going bankrupt. Now, the first thing to say is that in most cases, if cases are brought regarding harm or negligence that occurred at work, say you're working in a hospital and something goes wrong, it's not really possible in any meaningful sense that a patient or their family will sue an individual doctor. These threats are often made when patients and their families are very angry. I know this firsthand. In my first year as a doctor, I had an angry relative of a patient threatening to sue me because something I was doing wasn't to their liking. Something to the tune of, I don't think what your consultant is doing is correct with the plan for this patient, and you are refusing to change the consultant's plan, therefore I'm going to sue you, new FY1 Dr. Oliver. Most of the time, it just doesn't work that way. Generally, doctors have state indemnity, meaning that claims and cases will be brought against the employing NHS trust that is responsible for supplying and providing that care, rather than against an individual doctor. And this in fact applies to most NHS staff, not just doctors, and I'll leave a link to all of the legal resources in the description. And it should obviously go without saying, nothing in this video constitutes legal advice of any kind. This is all based on my understanding of the situation. It represents my personally held opinion and legally represents nothing more than that. However, there are instances, I'm sure you can imagine, where the care that you're providing will not be covered by this kind of indemnity, such as any private work where you're not working for the NHS. This might be providing something like medical cover at an event or working in an aesthetics clinic, and if complaints are brought to the GMC about your fitness to practice as a doctor. And further to that, the NHS will not help you under certain circumstances, such as coroner's inquests, fatal accident inquiries, or again, if you are subject to an investigation by the GMC, the NHS does not have a place in supporting you there. But the question is, these indemnity services cost extra, and particularly newly qualified doctors are quite financially precarious. So is it worth paying for these extra services? What do you actually get back? Ultimately, do you need it? And the answer is yes. Here are the reasons why. Firstly, you are required by the GMC to have appropriate indemnity in place for all of the work that you do as a doctor, and this is set out quite clearly in Good Medical Practice 2024. Secondly, it is a legal requirement to be properly indemnified if working as a doctor in the UK, and you should view this similarly to requiring car insurance if you're going to be driving on a road. You are legally required to have insurance in place in case something goes wrong. Thirdly, as we've said, even if you are relying on the NHS state indemnity, this will not help you in the case of certain circumstances, and you will not be provided by the NHS with the medico-legal support, advice, etc. that you will need in those circumstances. And you will very much be needing a specialist lawyer, a specialist organisation to support you to make sure that you handle these cases correctly. Number 4 is that the need is unpredictable. Nobody, or very, very few people I would hope, go to work intending on making a mistake, on being negligent, on causing harm. Very, very, very few doctors go to work aiming to do these things. But we are working in difficult environments, stressed environments. Patients are complicated. Patients are becoming more and more complicated, and you don't know when something is going to go wrong. Therefore, your only real solution is to invest in some rolling form of cover that exists in the background to make sure that it's there when you need it. You can't selectively pay for it after something bad has happened. And lastly, and most importantly, and I cannot make this clear enough, the NHS, by which I mean your employing trust, will throw you under the bus if that is what it takes to absolve the trust of responsibility. The role of teams like a trust's HR department, their legal team, is to protect the trust. It is not to protect you. And if pinning the blame on you as an employee is the easier/cheaper way out of a situation, whatever way preserves the reputation of the trust the best, that is what the trust will do. Therefore, I think it's really important that you have an independent source of medico-legal support that will back you when someone else is actively trying to put you in the firing line. You need that other person fighting your corner. Ideally, as ferociously as a trust's legal team will fight for them. Who should you go with? Well, it's impossible to say. I've laid out my conflicts of interest, but shop around, find the best quote you can for the particular work that you are doing. The cost of the cover will likely vary quite significantly depending on how many hours of work a week or a month you're doing, the type of work you're doing, whether you're employed as a locum doctor or a full-time fellow or something else. Shop around, find the best quote, be open and honest about the type of work you're doing, and just make sure that you are properly protected. Thank you very much, guys. Let me know which providers you use down in the comments. Who have you had good luck with? Who have you found to be quite affordable? Let's share these resources together and make sure that everyone is properly covered for the work that they're doing and remains out from underneath the NHS bus. Take care. Bye-bye.